Today, we are going to have 3 exciting sessions dedicated to the school education, the higher education, and skill development. We have been provided inputs from different nations on what challenges and best practices that have been followed at these different places. And this gives us an unique opportunity for all of us to understand the best practices and the challenges so that we could work together looking forward to coming out with very effective solutions which will include all the best of all of us and also the challenges that we can collectively address. We have a Sustainable Development Goal 4 in front of us, which talks about quality, equitable education for all. We all dream that due to this efforts that had been in place for quite some time, we will now have a world where every child will be at least a graduate. With these noble thoughts, again I invite all of you to India, Tamil Nadu, Chennai and IIT Madras Research Park, and I am sure you will all have a very pleasant and rewarding stay at our place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Next, I invite the India Chair, Shri K. Sanjay Murthy, Secretary to the Department of Higher Education, for the inaugural address and giving his opening remarks. Over to you, sir.
Vanakkam, Namaskar. Distinguished delegates from the G20 members and invited countries, our valued knowledge partners and international organizations, welcome to India and to this vibrant city of Chennai for the first meeting of the Education Working Group and the events associated with it. A warm welcome also to all the heads of institutions, faculty and teachers attending today's seminar. As many of you are aware, we will be organizing 4 meetings of the Education Working Group in the coming months. The Chennai meeting will be followed by meetings at Amritsar, Bhubaneswar, and Pune. We have also identified 4 priority areas for deliberations. These include issues of foundational literacy and numeracy, tech-enabled learning, future of work, and research and innovation collaboration. A unique feature of all these meetings under India's G20 presidency is that we have decided for the first time to have seminars and exhibitions on each of the 4 priority areas, in addition to the deliberations under the working group. This gives us a chance to broad-base our discussions with enriching inputs from sector experts and from all members invited countries. The exhibition on the sidelines is aimed at making the sharing of best practices more tangible and hence more effective. We are very happy to start our engagement under the G20 Education Working Group with this seminar on the role of digital technology in education at IIT Madras. During the past few years, all the G20 member countries have made significant progress in expanding the use of digital technologies for improving access to quality education. All countries have also encountered challenges in the use of technology. In today's seminar, we will be sharing these initiatives as well as the challenges we have faced and look at ways in which we can collaborate to leverage technology further to achieve common educational targets. It is time now to harness our advances to improve learning outcomes, promote lifelong learning, narrow the persistent learning deficits, and respond to the common challenges each country faces in achieving SDG 4 targets. We hope this seminar will provide a platform for all of this. We hope it will help us identify strategies for improving the use of digital technologies to enhance the student learning opportunities and outcomes, including for our children with special needs, share best practices, identify joint initiatives for leveraging digital technologies, and also areas for promoting research and academic collaboration among education institutions in the G20 member countries. The seminar will have a presentation on the use of digital technologies in education in the G20 and invited countries by the Director of IIT, Sri Kamakoti. This presentation has been compiled from the inputs provided by all our colleagues from member countries. This will be followed by 3 sessions on specific themes in a panel discussion format in which several of our distinguished delegates have been requested to speak. There will be an open question-answer session after each panel discussion, and I request all distinguished colleagues to participate actively in these deliberations. The exhibition organized at this venue displays key initiatives of the G20 countries, international organizations, and various Indian organizations on digital education initiatives. The objective is to enable and facilitate sharing of best practices and learnings from each other. I must thank my colleagues from G20 member countries and invited countries for sharing inputs for the seminar and participation in the exhibition. Today's seminar and exhibition are being hosted at IIT Madras, a premier education and research institution of India, which has excelled in the knowledge and innovation ecosystem. This leading innovator of technologies has achieved remarkable success in bringing together industry and academia to apply achievements in scientific knowledge and technologies to societal problems. Dear colleagues, this ancient city of Chennai has vibrant cultural elements and a bustling culinary scene. I am sure Chennai will offer you many thrilling experiences and fond memories to carry back home. I look forward to constructive and fruitful engagements with you and welcome you once again to the first Education Working Group seminar and meeting in Chennai. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. May I now request the delegates on the stage to take up the front seats.
Good.
I now invite Professor Andrew Tangraj, Professor at IIT Madras and the coordinator of NPTEL Swayam program for the keynote address.
Hello everyone, a very warm welcome from my behalf. I'm really happy and honored and privileged to be here in front of all of you to talk about two digital technology interventions in Indian higher education that I've been a part of. And I'll describe this to you to the best of my ability, but you have to understand I'm an academic, I'm not much of a bureaucrat, so I'm going to use words and terms which maybe are okay, please put up with me. So let me get started by just introducing you to the landscape of higher education in the country. Every year in India, more than 8.5 million students get into undergraduate education. That's a huge number. However, this is at a GER of only 27%. Only about 1/4 of the children of that age are getting into higher education, into undergraduate higher education today. We have a grand ambition of increasing this GER to 50%, maybe even 60%, 70%. That means this number could go to 16 million, 20 million, who knows? That kind of numbers we are looking at in the near future. Now, if you look a little closer at things like employability, one is a little bit, we need to be a little bit more careful because about 1 million out of this 8.5 million, 1 to 1.5 million gets into engineering school. Now, engineering school is quite reasonable for education and employability, but then there's lots of studies that people do these days which says, even out of engineering school, maybe the graduates are not that skilled, maybe we need to focus on that. However, the bulk, a large bulk, goes into degrees that we call BA, BSc, BCom. Now, you can see that's a huge fraction, and people who come out of those degrees, employability is a huge challenge. out of undergraduate getting jobs after those degrees is not very common, and it's one of the big problems that this country faces today, particularly as we increase GER. That's going to stare at us in even bigger fashion. So this is one issue I want to bring your attention to, and in terms of the landscape, in terms of the large scale at which higher education happens in this country, and how employability is something that one needs to focus on. If you look a little bit more close at the type of institutes we have, type of universities we have, type of colleges we have, into which this 8.5 million goes, where do they go every year? The topmost institutes in the country, the most premier institutes in the country, the most sought after dream institutions are no doubt the IITs. Every family has ambitions that their kid should be in an IIT. It's a matter of great prestige. These institutes are internationally well known, and for good reason. The teaching, learning practices, the peer group that you see in these institutions, and the way in which you get set for life with a degree from these institutions is amazing. So they have a great value, but on the flip side, the competition to enter into these institutes is really, really almost inhuman level of competition. Kids prepare from class 3 sometimes to get into these institutions. It's very, very hard, and it's also very costly. I'll talk a little bit more about the JEE, which admits students into these institutes. One important thing to note is these top institutes, what we call as institutes of national importance, about 135 of them, including 23 IITs, account for just 0.5% of total UG enrollments. So this data a few years ago, but it's not changed dramatically from that point on. So these are the top institutes. Everybody wants to be here, but very, very few get to go there. Next come public universities and private universities. There's quite a slightly larger number. You can see the enrollments, 10 times the enrollments of IITs are in public universities. Private universities, hundreds of them across the country. Quite a few of them have solid quality, good brands. It does vary. It's not quite uniform, but then it's pretty good. A lot of people who get in here are quite happy with the education that they get. The brand is also pretty good. The private universities, particularly the deemed ones, end up being large in scale. They admit tens of thousands of people, but then they also end up being expensive because they have to take care of good campuses. It's quite expensive. The public universities are slightly cheaper. They're more affordable, but then there's competition to get in there as well. It's not very easy to get into the top public universities. I'm not talking about undergraduate education on campuses of public universities and private universities. That is these kind of numbers. The huge, vast majority ends up in places that we call colleges. About 83% of undergraduate enrollment today is in colleges. These colleges are sort of smaller institutions affiliated sometimes to a public university, attached to a public university. They may be autonomous, but then they are strictly regulated and come under the tight control of public universities. And you can see 83%, it's huge. A large majority ends up in these colleges. And here, the quality varies very, very, very widely. Affordability varies. The government colleges, about 8,000 of them, are some of the cheapest in the country. They are there in the nooks and corners, and if you get in, you pay really very little money for your undergraduate education. There are very good private colleges all across the country. A lot of religious institutions run colleges. It's really varied. You should go out there and see some of our colleges. You'll see a wide variety, and quality does vary as well. You're not assured of the same type of syllabus, same type of career opportunities coming out of colleges, and clearly colleges form the huge bulk of the numbers. There are also open universities, but I don't want to talk too much about that because it's not still totally accepted in mainstream like in the other places. Now let's talk about how students get into these institutions. There's this big hierarchy of institutions I spoke about, most sought after, most aspirational, and then the colleges where everybody gets in. How do students get into it? How do you get admitted into it? That brings us into this huge problem of admission that we have in this country. Every year, you should just talk to parents and kids who are passing out of class 12. It's a stressful situation in the family. Everybody gets worked up. Lots of things happen. Why does it happen? Why is it that this is a big problem? The first thing is, if you look a little bit closer at our school education, there's a lot of variety there. CBSE is a pretty popular board. It's a great board. It's got good reputation, but only a very small fraction of graduates out of class 12 come from this board. It's got very good reputation. CBSE schools, you can hardly go wrong with the kind of graduates who come out of CBSE schools. But then a huge majority of our school graduates come out of state schools, various different states, and the variety there again is very, very different. So different schools have different states, have different type of school systems, different syllabi, different emphasis, different exams. It's very, very hard to normalize across them, compare across them. And so what ends up happening is pretty much any competitive public university, IIT, has to rely on entrance exam. Otherwise, it's not legally okay to compare students and admit them using any other means. So we end up using entrance exams as our means. So is that the great thing? It turns out today, entrance exams are a celebrated part of our culture. JEE in particular, which admits students into IITs, is considered one of the most difficult exams in the world. About 1.2 million or so get into the JEE exam every year. Less than 20,000 get into the IITs. So it's one of the most selective exams. You should see some of the questions that are asked in the JEE advanced exam. It's a very tough math and science problems at the level of 12th standard. So one can ask a lot of interesting questions. Are these students who are doing tough math and science problems the only type who are going to do well in life? These are all important questions to ask as well. Once the JEE culture is set, this has set the trend for every other entrance exam in the country. We rely on entrance exams so much more, and this causes tremendous stress in the families. Now, students prepare. They go to some towns, reside there, away from their families, and prepare for these entrance exams. There are documentaries made on this topic. You should go and watch some of these things. It's really, really hard to watch some of them. And just imagine if you're not in the top 20,000 out of 1.3 million, are you really a failure? I mean, if you end up being 50,000 out of the top 1.2 million, I think you're doing great. You should be celebrated as a great performer, but then you're declared a failure today in this country. And then you go through disappointment cycles, which are really, really tough to see. I do see some of these kids, they're really good students, very motivated, very capable, very skilled, but then they end up starting their lives and careers with the failure pasted on their foreheads. It's not really very nice. So what ends up happening is the last 2 points that I put up there. A lot of motivated, capable students. A lot of motivated, capable, good, solid, great students, right? If you're in the top 1 lakh out of 100,000 out of 1.5 million, that you're a great student in my opinion. But they end up in places where they are not happy either, or there is no good fit. They feel like they've lost out on getting into IIT, or they get into a college and they're not doing that great. So what is the solution? In a situation like this, where maybe we cannot spend so much more of our GDP into education, we have our own limitations in expenditure, what do we do? How do we solve this problem? What is it that we can do positively to impact the lives of these students who end up in these various institutes and colleges, maybe lower than their capability? They're more capable, they're not getting what they want. One solution is to provide access. Now, if you just think of higher education in general, just from a high level, if you want to describe what is the most desirable aspect of higher education, I would put it down to 3 things. The first is universal access. Anyone who wants higher education desperately should get it, particularly the aspirational folks in the country who really need higher education to get better in life, get their families out of poverty. Universal access, absolutely important. Happy learners, while they are in college, they should enjoy learning. Learning is something that should be enjoyed, and this is something that sets you for life, right? Once you start enjoying learning, that's a fantastic thing about education. The third thing is skilled graduates. They should get out and get jobs. No point in getting a degree for the sake of having 2 letters at the end of your name. It should give you skills. It should give you jobs. You should be able to go out into the economy and contribute after that. So if you can do those things, you're doing fantastically well in higher education. And today, for a large majority of the people that we see, what we need to provide is access, in this country at least, to the top institutes. Access to top institutes for anyone who's motivated and willing to work hard is a fantastic way of approaching this problem. And both the interventions that I've been part of, the digital technology, online interventions, I want to say online with the personal connect. I'll talk about what that means. 2 big projects that I've been part of. The first one is called NPTEL, the National Program on Technology Enhanced Learning. The URL is out there for you. The second one is a much more recent one, less than 3 years old. It's IIT Madras BS degree. Today, IIT Madras has opened its doors and it offers a BS degree to those who are motivated and who are willing to work hard. So these two programs, these two projects provide access to IITs for individual course certificates, access to IITM for an entire degree that you can get today from IITM. And both of these have won awards recently, the QS Reimagine Education Awards, the gold for lifelong learning and silver for best online program. Even before we graduated a single student, we become a best online program. So that's the awards we have won. I'm really happy to describe both of these programs to you very briefly in the rest of this talk. A couple of things I want to point out. IITM today gives degrees without JEE. You get in, you show you can perform well, you get a degree. In such a situation, when you provide open access, how do you ensure rigor? How do you make sure that the brand is protected? How do you make sure that good skilled graduates come out and go out and get jobs? Those are difficult problems, isn't it? So this is what I'm going to try and focus on in the rest of this talk. So NPTEL is actually a very old project, more than 2 decades old. It started all the way back in 2003. It's funded completely by the Ministry of Education. I should thank the Ministry of Education for this steadfast support over the past 2 decades. It's a joint project of 7 IITs and IISc. So at that time, when this project started, there were only 7 IITs. There are 23 IITs today. 7 IITs and IISc Bangalore participated in this project. For a long time, NPTEL was recording course content that happens in IITs, and it put it up on the portal and people were watching. Around 2010, when MOOCs became a big buzzword, NPTEL started doing MOOCs in the Indian context. So in 2014, we started a certification effort, and it still carries on. And if you look around the globe, there are various portals out there. NPTEL probably is not the most well known globally. We don't market our name that well. But then, if in terms of content, we are really, really, really rich. There's more than 2,500 courses, 60,000 hours of video in engineering, technological, college course, curriculum-based content. I can easily say this is one of the leading portals in the world. You go to any grad school, you see serious graduate learners, they will be looking at NPTEL videos, and this includes countries like the US and Germany and France. Across the world, high-quality learning happens on NPTEL portal today. So let me describe what is this NPTEL's unique way of doing certification with MOOC courses. Like I said, NPTEL opens the doors and provides access to IITs for anyone who's motivated and wants to learn, right? Open access provided if you are motivated, if you want to learn. How do we do it? We have a portal, swayam.gov.in, the National MOOCs portal of India, which is again supported by the ministry. So every semester we put up courses there. Anyone across the globe, not just in India, across the globe can simply log in, click on join, you're in the course. Any course you want to learn. In January 23, we have 665 courses up on this portal. Right now, you can go and log in and join any course that you want. Now, this runs like a MOOC. There's weekly assignments, forum, live sessions, exciting content, 10 weeks, 12 weeks. It goes on even for a longer time. This runs like a MOOC. But then we don't stop there. After that, you can register for an exam. So there's a small fee for it. Up until now, everything is free. But then after that, you have to pay a small fee. It's just 1,000 rupees, about $12 if you want me to convert. Okay? So you pay a small fee, and then you can show up and write an exam. Now, this exam is in centers across the country, physical centers with proctoring. That's sort of a picture where the exam happens. And if you write that exam in a center and if you pass, you get a certificate. And this certificate comes with the stamp and seal of the IITs and IISc and the top institutes that are running this course. Now, this, over the past 8 years, has become hugely successful and become part of mainstream higher education in the country through important policy measures and a very, very important personal connect program that we have launched. This is an important part. We have been able, over the past 8 years, to mainstream MOOCs in this country. I think very few countries have done this, and India has done this successfully through